Three married couples are having fun at a party. Jack Chambers offers his wife Alice a car ride. The couple seems perfectly happy. In the morning, Alice cooked her husband a delicious breakfast. Before Jack leaves for work, she asks him what to make for the upcoming party. Suddenly all the furniture in the house shook, but it quickly ended. Jack reassured his wife that there was nothing to worry about. Like Alice, Bunny and Peg see their beloved husbands off to work. All three couples live in the neighborhood. The men routinely go to work at the headquarters of the Victory Secret Project, which is located in the desert, while their wives do household chores. That's how their usual day goes. During the day, the women attend dancing lesson to keep themselves in shape. By the way, Peg is pregnant. Shelley, their dance instructor, came out to the women. She gave the good news: the Victory Project has hired a new employee, Bill Johnson. Shelley introduced his wife, Violet, to the other women, who greeted her with applause. Violet looked embarrassed. The ladies began the dance class under Shelley's guidance. Later, Alice and Bunny gossiped about Violet, whom they found sweet. Seeing that her children were spoiling, Bunny scolded them. Alice is going about her daily routine when she suddenly notices Margaret, who looks strange. Alice got ready for the upcoming party and at some point realized that something was wrong with the eggs. The woman was puzzled when she was able to crush it easily. In the evening, Jack returned from work. The wife greeted him in a beautiful dress. A sumptuous dinner was laid on the table. The lovers indulged in passion right in the kitchen. On a sunny day, the women sunbathed by the pool and drank cocktails. Some wondered why Alice and Jack still hadn't had children. According to Alice, she and her husband want to enjoy each other, so children would only get in the way. At that moment, strange visions flashed through Alice's head. Later she looked at the model of their perfect town. While the men discussed business matters, the women talked about shopping, cooking, and other everyday activities. Shelley made a toast to the new residents of the town, Bill and Violet, who will become part of their big family. Frank and his team are building something special. Suddenly Margaret loudly said that none of them should be here. The husband immediately took her away from the guests. Everyone was puzzled by what had just happened. The tense atmosphere was diffused by Frank, Shelley's husband, who gave a speech about their perfect city. According to him, disorder is the main enemy of progress. Dr. Collins was one of the first to start building this community with Frank. Now everyone in this city is one big happy family. Frank also thanks the women, the keepers of the home, who make their men even stronger. Everyone found this speech very touching. Alice can't find her husband anywhere. Suddenly she saw Margaret again, who claimed that madness was happening around them. Jack stands in front of the mirror, wondering if the tie suits him. Alice said it looks great on him. There was passion between them right there. At some point, Alice noticed that Frank was watching them. While their husbands are at work, women spend time at the entertainment center, styled as the 1950s. Everyone gossips about Margaret, who behaves inappropriate. Ever since Margaret caused the demise of her son, she has become an outcast in this city. On that fateful day, Margaret against the band took her son to the desert, where it was unsafe. Later, she was found alone, and the boy was nowhere to be found. The building shook for a moment, but no one paid attention to it. None of the women know what their husbands are really doing at work. They are here because they believe in the mission. Alice has strange visions again. She wakes up from a nightmare, and in the morning as usual sees her husband off to work and then cleans the house. During the day, Alice took the tram to relax from the routine. Suddenly she saw a plane flying from the headquarters. It looked distorted, as if it wasn't real. The tram driver claimed he didn't see anything. When the plane crashed, Alice panicked and asked the driver to go there, but he said it wasn't his route and they had to stay safe. Alice went to the crash site on foot, ending up in the desert. Very soon she was on the verge of losing consciousness. Alice walked for a long time under the scorching sun, reaching the Victory headquarters. She called for help, but no one answered. Alice was attracted by strange sounds. When she put her palms on the mirror surface, she experienced hallucinations. Perhaps the life Alice lives is a deception. Alice woke up in her room. When she came to the kitchen, she saw Jack cooking dinner, and very clumsily. They seemed to have swapped places. Alice was puzzled, not understanding what was going on. It turned out that when Jack arrived, Alice was already home. She told her husband about the plane, but he said it was impossible. If a plane had crashed, everyone would have noticed. Jack insisted that his wife rest today, and he would do all the housework himself. The next day Alice, after seeing her husband off, went about their daily tasks, wiping down the glass. Suddenly she felt as if the wall pressed her against the glass. A few seconds later everything was as it had been. The phone rang. Margaret told Alice that she went beyond and seen it with her own eyes. According to Margaret, they had been living a lie the whole time, so they couldn't stay here any longer. Alice hung up, not wanting to believe it. During the day, she attended dance lessons with the other wives. Suddenly she saw in the mirror Margaret trying to break through the glass. Alice screamed in horror, but no one saw it except her. The vision disappeared. Alice realized that Margaret was in danger and ran to her house. Margaret was standing on the roof. In front of Alice's eyes, she harmed herself. In the evening, Alice told Jack everything, but he assured her that Margaret was okay and now in the hospital with her husband. According to Jack, she accidentally fell out of the window while washing it. However, Alice saw something completely different and believes that something is wrong around her. Jack continues to insist that what happened was just an accident. For the first time in all these years, Alice asked her husband what he does at his job. Jack said he was an engineer working on the development of progressive materials. Alice wanted to know the details, but the husband said it was a secret project. Frank's mission is incredibly important, but if Alice continues to ask too many questions, they could lose everything. At night, Alice couldn't sleep. On TV as always they talked about Victory City, which is paradise on earth. However, now Alice knows for sure that this is one big deception. Alice decides to prove to herself experimentally that the world around her is just an illusion. However, she felt unwell. Worried Jack called Dr. Collins, who said Alice was overworked. Perhaps she was in shock from what had happened to Margaret, so her mind distorted memories. The doctor prescribed Alice some pills, but she immediately suspected that something was wrong and told the doctor that she didn't need it.
We can handle it ourselves.
Alice asked about Margaret and how she survived the fall. The doctor explained that Margaret has serious psychiatric problems, which caused her husband Ted to lose his job in the Victory Project. Jack assured that this would not happen to them. The doctor left and forgot his briefcase. Alice wanted to check what was inside. Collins returned a minute later and took it. He didn't know that the patient had stolen a folder. The documents were written in code, so Alice couldn't read anything. To cover up the evidence, she burned Margaret's medical history. That evening, Alice drank and looked at herself in the mirror for a long time. Strange visions haunted her. She woke up in the bathtub. The husband entered, asking her to hurry up as they were late for a party. Alice didn't expect Jack to suggest having a child. It was a shock for her, since they didn't plan on having any children. In the evening there was a party organized by Shelley and Frank. Everyone was having fun except Alice, who noticed Frank staring at her strangely. Frank gave a speech and asked Jack to come on stage. Ignoring his wife, he joined Frank, who offered him a place on the Elder Council. Jack happily accepted the honor. Alice watched all of this with tears in her eyes. Unable to handle it, she went to the bathroom, trying to calm down. She remembered how some time ago the husband confessed to her that he lost his job. Bunny noticed the friend's nervous state and asked what happened. Alice said that Margaret was right and that the men were lying about everything. Margaret asked many uncomfortable questions, so they decided to get rid of her. Bunny was shocked to learn that her friend went to the Victory headquarters, breaking the ban. According to Alice, at that moment some memories returned to her, which were drowned out by Frank's voice. Bunny accused her friend of being crazy and trying to ruin the most important day of her husband's life. While guests were celebrating Jack's promotion, Alice was left alone. In the morning, she made breakfast for her husband as usual, and in the evening guests arrived, including their new neighbors, Violet and Bill. Peg was surprised that Bunny didn't come. Soon Frank and Shelley arrived. Alice chatted amiably with the women without revealing her true state. Suddenly Frank approached her and said he was sorry Bunny didn't believe her. Frank also expressed his admiration for Margaret and Alice, who dared to challenge him. Meanwhile, the guests sat down at the table. Alice joined them and suddenly asked Violet where she was from. She replied that she was from Philadelphia, like Peg and many others. Alice began to ask her about her past life. Frank seemed to enjoy this performance. It turned out that each couple's meeting followed the same scenario. Each woman met her future husband on a train. This proves that the whole world around them is an illusion, and Frank is involved in it. Of course everyone was puzzled, especially Jack. But he was even more shocked when he learned that his wife went to the Victory headquarters, which was strictly prohibited. According to Alice, Frank locked them all up here. Frank began to persuade the guests that Alice was crazy. Everyone agreed with this. Shelley called her a selfish person who falls into paranoia and seeks answers to made-up questions. After these words, Shelley left the table. The other guests followed her example. Before leaving, Frank wished Alice good luck. Jack was convinced that his wife did it on purpose to set him up. He didn't believe a word Alice said. But she says for the umpteenth time that Frank cannot be trusted. The wife suggested that he leave this city as soon as possible. Surprisingly, Jack agreed. Alice immediately started packing because they needed to leave today. However, when they got in the car, Alice realized that the husband had deceived her. The same people who took Margaret came for her. Jack with tears in his eyes said he had tried to prevent it, but couldn't. Alice ended up on the operating table. She was subjected to electroshock therapy. In those moments, Alice remembered how Jack lost his job in the past. Alice is a surgeon who takes extra shifts at work because her husband doesn't make any money. Alice comes home late again and is angry that Jack not only can't find a job, but also doesn't clean or cook. One day Jack found a speech on the internet by Frank, who claimed to have created a place where a man can be what he's meant to be according to human nature. In the present, the procedure is complete. Soon happy Alice returned home, Bunny hugging her. Life seems to have returned to normal. However, Alice's memories are damaged, and she doesn't immediately remember Peter's wife Peg, who is constantly pregnant. The next morning, the men go to work at the headquarters as usual. Alice's life went on as befits any woman in this place. Today Jack comes home early from work. His beloved wife goes to get dinner from the oven. But when he starts singing a familiar tune, some memories return to her. In the past, 29-year-old Jack joined the Experimental Victory Project. He was told that their community requires caution. He is also responsible for preparing the system in his home. Alice lies with a special device connected to her. Like all participants, Jack must exit the simulation through the Victory headquarters every day and return only for a set number of hours. For Jack, it was a way to gain full control over his life and wife. In reality he is an unemployed loser, but in the simulation he is a successful man. Alice screams and doesn't let the husband near her. She remembered everything and asked Jack what he's done. Jack tries to convince his wife that she's having another psychotic episode, but Alice now knows he's lying. She realizes that Jack has taken away the life in which she was self-sufficient and independent. But Jack believes he did the right thing because his wife no longer needs to work. Frank created the world where they can build their perfect life. However, Alice doesn't want to live in a simulation. She is horrified to realize that the other wives are also locked up here by their husbands. According to Jack, all the children are not real. Alice tried to escape, but the husband wouldn't let her go. Then she knocked him out. At that moment Bunny entered their home. Frank was informed that Jack is no longer alive. Meanwhile, Alice tries to explain to Bunny that they are all living in a simulation created by Frank. It turns out that Bunny always knew about it. According to Bunny, if a man dies here, he dies in the real world as well, so Alice needs to run away urgently, or they won't let her go. But Alice wasn't going anywhere until she had an explanation. Bunny confessed that she herself chose this life because in this world she can be with her children whom she lost in reality. The other women know nothing about this. When the neighbors saw her in a dress with red spots, they were shocked. The simulation began to malfunction. The men were scared because Frank had guaranteed them absolute safety. Alice rushed out running and took a car. The men tried to stop her and then chased her. All the women except Bunny do not understand what is happening. Alice was surrounded by men in red suits who obey Dr. Collins. However, she was able to provoke an accident and get rid of the pursuit. New cars appeared on the horizon. Alice headed to the headquarters. Frank cannot allow anyone to escape from the simulation. Suddenly Shelley took her husband's life, calling him a fool. Now it was her turn to set the rules. The car got stuck, so Alice was forced to run on foot. The men in red suits continued to pursue her. Alice was getting close to the exit of the simulation when suddenly Jack hugged her and asked her not to leave him. But it was only an illusion. Alice exited the simulation. In the final scenes, we hear her breathing immediately after waking up.